And we're very responsive and reactive to our customers. We're always listening to say, ooh, how could it work better? Why is that missing some nuance? This works one way in Virginia, which is different in Georgia, which is different in Maryland, which is different in Montana. We need to learn about those nuances and make sure that we're always building nuance into the platform. And this is, just an example of over 80 times last year that we did that, which if you think about other software platforms you've probably worked with over time, the majority of software platforms, would have a number like 12 to 15, right? You'll have one big monthly release or something like that. We've been doing weekly releases, sometimes 2 per week, for the entire year. And I don't see us slowing down. We've already got 2 releases out so far this year, and it's the 15th. So continue to expect more and more hitting Engagifii, and we're going to highlight a couple of those items. I thought it might be interesting for you to see sort of the distribution of where we focused the majority of our attention. And legislation won that poll a minute ago. You can see there that legislation made the top 3. Throughout the year, we've added a whole lot of incremental enhancements to legislation. A couple that come to mind are things like bill compare in some states that didn't have it before, where now you can compare bills one to another without using a highlighter and a printer. Another thing where you can copy the legislative analysis from one bill to its companion bills, right? If there was a prior introduction of it, or if there's a cross file in the other chamber. So a bunch of focus on legislation, and a really cool thing coming on legislation that I want to show you in a moment. But as we've had more and more clients going live on Engagifii and using it and getting their training programs up and running, accreditation and its overlap with events, you can almost think of those two things together. That's really where we focus the majority of our attention, is in helping you put on events that have within them training. If we were to combine those 2 columns, you would see 31 there. That would really be the area that is the far and away winner, which is of course supported by a clean database. We did a lot of work this year in relationships to ensure that you've got really cool ways of managing people in a clean way that is sustainably clean. Every time a new client comes on, we always ask them to give themselves a letter grade as to how clean their database is, and I've never heard an A yet. One of the things we want to help everybody do is create A's for themselves, right? How clean is your database? How reliable are your analytics? We put a lot of work into relationships on that front too. So just a quick idea there of sort of how the distribution of that 80-something has worked. Now, I want to highlight a couple of things that we've focused on over the year. Out of that 80-something, these are sort of 5 that I want to talk about real briefly. And if you haven't had a chance to see these, I've asked Sharon to sort of queue up and send over, if we did a webinar on it, or if there's an article or a blog post on it, or a YouTube video on it, to share that information with you guys. We've been communicating this stuff throughout the year. And would love for you to get informed on it if it's something that you'd like to use but haven't seen. There's a whole smorgasbord in the enhanced event management. I'm going to show you that in a moment. We introduced a whole new elected terms tracking tool into the relationships database this year, which has been a huge hit with so many of our clients. I don't know if you guys heard, there was an election this last year. It was on the news once or twice. And so now with an Engagifii, you have the ability to track not just that someone's in a job, someone's a county commissioner or a school board member or a mayor or what have you, but you can also track their elected history or their appointed history if they're in an appointed public service position. Really cool stuff there. Upgraded group management. Man, we've made some cool stuff for groups. This is largely in response to some of our school board association clients who use groups for interesting staffing purposes, but a lot of our other clients have used them, have used some of these enhancements in groups that we didn't even expect, and it's been pretty cool to see. From a marketing and communications point of view, we've done a couple of really key integrations, and when it comes to just building more intelligence in your team, we've introduced an interactions module. So talk about each of those in isolation just real quickly. Who here, I don't know, raise your hand, wave at the camera, whatever, if you're involved in the events in your organization. Events did pretty well in that poll a minute ago. Most people are, in one way or another, either helping to put on the event, organize the event, they're speaking at the event, they're helping members at the event. Events are such a key part of what associations do around member engagement. And of course, it's also a big dues driver or non-dues revenue driver. And it's an important part of what you guys do. And so we've put a lot of attention in that. And these are just some of the areas that we focused. This year, we introduced a badging tool. So I can now go to my participants list and select everybody that I want to print a badge for and hit print. And we've got a bunch of different templates already in there that are largely customizable. Drop your logo on it, decide the name goes here, the position goes there, right? Making decisions. We've got more plans down the road to make badges even cooler, but this was a good thing that we introduced both at the event level as well as at the class level. Sometimes you have classes, you need name badges for them, but that class isn't part of some larger event. It's a local regional workshop or something like that. And you can also print badges at the class level too. We introduced a really neat thing called bundles. Hopefully most folks have gotten a chance to play with that. That happened, I want to say, in early Q2 this last year. So sometimes, I guess, sorry, you guys live on a different fiscal frequency than I do. So this had been March, April, May, somewhere in that time frame. We released this bundles concept that allows you to basically offer registration tracks. So if you wanted to allow people to register for your events, on the county clerk track or on the school board chairman track or on the mayor's track, and get automatically registered into all the classes that have to do with their profession. Or if you wanted to do, here's everything in Monday, here's everything in Tuesday, and offer single day or multi-day registration packages, or include the pre-conference workshop or don't include the pre-conference workshop. These bundles allow you all kinds of flexibility on the configuration and on the pricing of the various ways you might invite someone to register for your event, instead of just giving them a Chinese food menu and saying, pick what you want. You can still do that, but you can also go the McDonald's route and say, here's some bundles. Modifying registrations. This was a huge ask. And I think we under realized how big a deal this was going to be as we were building out events, how commonly those registrations need to be either canceled or modified. And so this ended up, because of all the revenue automation that we built into Engagifii, and for those of you who are coming new to Engagifii, you may not know yet that whenever one of your folks registers for an event or is registered by some admin assistant in their organization for an event, that we automate all the invoice sending on the back end. So that's great, saves you a bunch of time, but that has consequences when it's time to make a cancellation or when it's time to make a modification to that registration. And this guy wants an additional class, it's going to cost him $100, or wants to cancel, it's going to come, and you want to charge a cancellation fee because the event starts tomorrow, whatever. We have built all of those modification and cancellation tools now to allow you to go into a reservation and modify it as many times as you want. And we still handle all the downstream financial impacts and registration sort of registrar stuff automatically. Pretty cool stuff. We've introduced guest registration. So if I'm coming to your event and I'm being registered by, let's say I'm a school board member, I'm being registered by my board secretary, I can also bring my wife and she can be sort of attached to my reservation. So guest registration was a heavily demanded thing or requested thing, and we've done that as well. We've introduced some new reminders to help people not miss the event, know that it's coming up, and introduced a lot more tools around exports. Probably the single biggest thing, except for maybe the modification and the bundles thing, these three could probably all vie for top one in this list, is the exhibitor management component. We've done our first of 2 major deployments on exhibitors. We have another one planned for the coming weeks, and in the coming weeks, once that's done, we're going to be doing another webinar for exhibitors, kind of specifically. So for those of you that are involved in exhibitors, please keep your eye open for more invitations to an upcoming webinar, really targeting on exhibitors and on event management as a whole. So lots of stuff. And that's, of 80, what did I say, 86? Of the 86 items, there's 7 of them right there focused on events. And there were a bunch more as well. Terms. I mentioned terms a minute ago. So Morgan Freeman is not actually a county commissioner, everybody. He's an actor, as it turns out. But in my little fictional example here, you can see that I'm tracking the elected history of Morgan as a commissioner from 2012 to 2024 as a guy who's been elected and reelected. So we have introduced a new centralized term management tool that allows you to, for all of your public servants that you're tracking, manage when they've come into office, when they left office, if there was a gap in between, where that gap is. If, we just now ended 2024, Let's back up our brains a couple of months, right? It's October 2024, the election's next month. Who all in my database is coming up for re-election? Well, now with terms, you can answer that question. So we did a webinar on this recently. Sharon just put in the chat a link to that. If you didn't get to check that out, it was about a 1-hour webinar where we dove into this and do a lot of detail. A lot of our clients have jumped at this and had a great time. I have yet to find a client who has such weird term layouts in their state that we haven't been able to accommodate with this tool. So it's been a really successful launch. A lot of our clients are using the mess out of it, and we'd love to get your feedback, your input, and of course, during the next election cycle, we want you to be prepared for it and be able to go into it knowing with confidence who all's coming up and who all isn't, so that you can target your efforts, your communications, your engagement appropriately. And also not have to, on January 20th, as it were, have to crunch together a bunch of work in one moment to update your database as new people are taking their seats. So Terms is cool. It's very flexible. It's very unique. I can't think of another tool out there that allows you to do this so robustly, and allows you to have this sort of intel at such quick access. So please let us know how you're liking Terms out there. Sort of combined on one slide here, Engagifii does a lot of stuff, right? We're an events platform, we're a training platform, we're a database management platform, and now a terms platform. We're a legislative tracking and communications platform. What we aren't is a marketing platform, right? If I want to produce a really sexy, high fidelity, multi-column, lots of imagery, charts and graphs, email to send out to my membership about something, Engagifii is sort of just not the right tool for that. We're all these other things. So Constant Contact and MailChimp, many of you will be familiar with them, are best in breed marketing tools. And you can create these amazing looking emails through those tools. The downside is, historically, if you're going to use something like that, you've always got to download and upload. Every time I get a new board member, every time I get a new mayor, every time I get a new county commissioner, I've got to update my mailing lists over in Constant Contact or MailChimp. So those days are gone. We've built an integration here for both of those tools that they both do the exact same thing. Whenever your group or whenever you add a new person to your database that is part of a mailing list with an Engagifii, part of that group at Engagifii, it'll automatically copy it over to Constant Contact or MailChimp. So every morning when you walk in, that is already there. You do not have to do anything. This was a major request by a lot of our clients, and we were really excited to not only be able to do one of them, but both of them this last year. And then another biggie, interactions. So interactions is cool. This is a cross-referenced note-taking thing, basically, right? If I'm on the engagement team and I go out and visit with one of my members, I go visit Morgan Freeman in his office, and we talk about what's going on at their county, what's going on at their city, whatever it is, what their needs are, whatever. I'm writing down the results of that meeting, the date, the time, who I talked to. And now if I go look at that organization, if I go look at that person's record, I can see that history of conversation. But maybe more importantly, if my executive director is going out and visiting that same member later, then they have access to those notes as well. So maybe they're not going to visit Morgan, maybe they're going to visit Ben Affleck at the same place. And when they show up, my executive director shows up, they're able to see, oh, but Ben was here just last week talking to Morgan, and they're informed. Everyone's in the know a little bit better because we've shared notes on this stuff. Cool. Any questions at all from anybody regarding what we released last year? Again, I know that's only a smattering out of the 86. Anyone want to pipe up or type into the chat if there's something that wasn't covered just now, or something you want to call out that was done last year that made a particular impact in your life? If so, we'd love to hear it. If not, I'll move on to some previews of what's coming next year. Everyone wants new stuff.
A lot
All right.
Stuff. It's exciting.
New stuff. All right. So you see on the screen right now 4 major things, again, amongst probably another 80. But these are sort of the 4 major things that we're planning on for this year. Not to say these are the only things we're doing, obviously, this coming year or in 2025. I'm going to sort of walk you through, instead of describing these, I'm going to walk you through what we call prototypes. So when I come off the slideshow here, which I know everybody loves a slideshow, but I'm going to go off the slideshow and go into these interactive prototypes where I'm going to be able to sort of give you a little under the hood of what is coming very soon along each of these lines, starting with kind of a big hero here of dues management. So most of the folks in the room, I believe, are from associations. I think I see a couple of county governments and city governments in the room as well. But if I'm not mistaken, probably the vast majority of folks in the room right now are part of an association who have to deal with membership dues on some recurring frequency, most likely yearly. And you probably have some crazy ornate formula that you're calculating dues with. And you've got this whole invoicing process you've got to worry about. You've got to worry about how to remind people, what are they going to order this year? What are they going to order next year? So what you're about to see is all very much work in progress, right? The scope, the look and feel of things, some of the details will likely change. In fact, I'll guarantee will change between now and their eventual release. But by mid-year, my hope is that dues is well within your hands, and you are able to start collecting dues ahead of your next fiscal turnover in the June-July timeframe. So let's start by thinking about, okay, well, what are dues? And one way to think about this, folks, is the dues are a little bit like your Netflix subscription, if you boil them down to a very basic component, right? It's a recurring membership. And so you'll be able to create memberships, quote unquote, or subscriptions, quote unquote, and call them whatever you want and structure them however you want. So here's sort of just a basic progression, right? I've got a basic gold, platinum sort of thing going on here of dues. And you can see here that some of them are purchased by organizations. So let's say I'm a school board association. Well, the school board member herself is not necessarily my member. The district is, the school system is, right? So the organization is the buyer, as opposed to, say, the NAACP, for whom members are people, individuals, right? The NAACP would have person-based. You might have a collection of both. I was talking with one of our clients just the other day who said, yeah, we sort of have both. We have organizations that buy their dues, but then members within sort of our affiliate umbrella organizations also pay dues individually. And so here you can see that you'd have the flexibility to do both. When you're configuring your dues, there's all kinds of stuff you're going to be able to do. Of course, setting a default price, but just like with events and with classes and with awards right now, you'll also be able to set differential pricing, where if I'm part of Region 3, I get one price. If I'm in Hartford, I get one price. If I'm in small town Connecticut, I get a different price. That kind of stuff. Decide your billing frequency. Is this a monthly thing, a daily thing, a weekly thing, an annual thing? Most likely, I'm sure you guys will have, every 12 months. Oops, excuse me, every 12 months or every year set up in there. Is this something that I'm limiting? Right? Silly example here, maybe, but in a county government situation, there's only so many counties in the state. And if there's 200 counties in the state, and this is the county government membership, right, the dues, then I can't sell 500 of them, right? It doesn't make sense. So you can quantity limit, if you want, these things so that people can't accidentally double buy, so that you can't accidentally double sell. You're going to be able to decide how you want to handle mid-cycle stuff. If you've got 150 out of 151 counties or school boards or what have you in your state, and you want to sell a new one, but it's off cycle, okay, well, do I have to wait until the next fiscal turnover? Can I start it now? And if I start it now, do I prorate it? Do I just not bill them for the remainder of this year? That sort of stuff. You'll have tools that will enable you to manage all of that, as well as what payment types you'll accept for that. We hear pretty commonly that I want to take credit cards for my event registrations because they're sort of small fry, $500, $1,000, but I don't want to take a $30,000 membership, dues payment via credit card because that's hitting 3% of 30 grand. And so you're going to have controls there. You're going to be able to decide whether you want auto renewal or not. We don't think a lot of you will want auto renewal for membership dues at an organizational level, but there might be other instances, especially for individuals, where you might. And so we're going to give you some flexibility there to be able to configure auto renew. That again will be kind of like your Netflix, right? Every month on the first, your Netflix renews, or whatever day of the month, your Netflix renews. Well, maybe you could set your dues up that way as well and automate all of those billing processes without having to manage it yourself. You're going to be able to designate, this is a little bit in the weeds, but you'll be able to designate different experiences for different types of memberships. And what I mean by that is if you send an order form, looking at you, John, if you send a digital order form out to your members and want them to go through one process for signing up for this particular membership, but a whole different process for this membership over here. And for this third one, I want them to go through a process, but then also have to be approved by someone on my team, the association staff, before we'll bill them and say, okay, you're now a member. So you can think about those sorts of mixtures, how you might have 5 or 6 different flavors of your membership that you want to structure the experience of signing folks up differently from one to the next. And you might want to have that gate, that control on the back end of approving whether that membership should go live or not. And then I mentioned the F word earlier, formulas. You'll be able to take your output of formulas or formulae, from your big master spreadsheet that I'm sure you've got that says county A or school system A or city A pays this much, B pays that much, C pays that much, and so on, and upload that file. And this is going to make me go through a couple of steps here where it's going to pretend to fail. This is, again, just a little prototype. But it's gonna upload your document, and now you've got all of your members living in here with their appropriate price. And if it's differential from one to the next because of the formula, then it would reflect all that. And then you're just going to choose to push one button and send out all those invoices if you want. And then, of course, on the back end, right? You've gone through a renewals process. You've gotten, payments. Now it's 2025 going into 26. Well, who are all my active and not active members? Who moved from one level to the next level, or down a level, right? This is an indication of engagement. This is an indication of your own financial health. For you to be able to have, just like Netflix knows who used to be their customers, it's important for you to know who's paid their bills, who hasn't paid their bills, who's up on their membership, because you might restrict certain services to someone who's behind on their membership, right? So you'll have all that access right here within the new dues tools, as well as, of course, a documents folder, just like you have today on an organization or on a venue. If you need to keep signed contracts and things of that nature within Engagifii, you'll have a sort of Google Drive-esque file management tool right within the membership itself, so that if I want to look for all of the signed contract for XYZ member, then I can go pull that up right here. No need to search email, no need to find that SharePoint file. It's just part of the due itself, the dues thing itself, the membership itself. Any reactions, thoughts, concerns? Anyone out there think that does not scratch their itch at all? We've missed the mark. Or is there anyone out there who'd like to throw a little thumbs up because they think that does scratch the particular itch that they've got? Remember, I want to be a painkiller, not a vitamin. Steve, I'm assuming that's a high five, Steve. Hopefully it's not a, oh my God, no, Steve. So cool. Let's move on forward then. Engagement scoring. Now, we named our product 5 years ago Engagifii. Engage is the primary part of that. What we've been building toward all this time is giving you all the activities, all the intel, all the information consolidated into one place, into Engagifii, instead of fractured across your legislative tools over here and your membership database over there and your events platform over there and your training records over here. We've tried to work over the last 5 years as a foundation to help you consolidate all of those things into just Engagifii, with the end goal being giving you the ability to create structures of engagement measurement. So again, some folks are going to measure the engagement of an individual, some folks an organization, some folks both. And so you're going to want to ask the question, of all of the counties or school boards or cities or what have you that I support, that I represent, that I help, who are my most engaged? Who are coming to the most events? Who's got my most high certification? Who hasn't come to an event in 3 years? Who didn't appear at the President's Roundtable last week, right? When we think about all these measurements we're taking of who got the email, who commented on the legislative bill, who who was checked in at an event, we're going to start measuring all that stuff so that you can start calculating these scores. And so the way it's going to look is, think of it like a traffic light sort of thing, right? We want to give you the weighting tools that says whenever someone attends an event, and specifically maybe this event, maybe all events within the last 12 months, I want to give that a name and give it a weighted score. Now, for whatever reason, I've chosen 218 as the maximum possible score here. I imagine most of you are going to do something like a 0 to 100. And if I attend an event, then, plus some points. If I haven't attended an event, then minus some points, right? And you'll be able to think through all the different things that you consider engagement, earned an award or a certification, attended an event, updated their record, commented on a piece of legislation, so on and so forth. Renewed their subscription, right? All these different things that you might want to measure and then apply a weighted score to. Someone coming to your conference, you might consider that less valuable than someone earning your highest accreditation, right? And so you can score those, weight those. And then we're going to do all this calculation in the back end that basically, and I'm going to skip ahead a few things here, will result in a score that says Amy is 62. Now, what does 62 mean? Well, that depends on your scale, right? If you're 0 to 100, then she's engaged, but not a hero, right? Pamela's a hero. Amy is hero adjacent. And we're starting to get worried about Teresa. We're starting to get worried about Jimmy, right? That's someone my member engagement team needs to reach out to. Now, I'm showing names here. Of course, these could be organizations. I'm worried about this school board. I'm worried about this city government. They're not coming to our events. Why not? We might lose them as a member. And then, you'll be able to visualize this stuff and sort of draw conclusions. When I look at my member engagement score, what's my distribution? Is my score generally going up? Is it generally holding flat? What are my trends? What am I looking at here that makes me happy or sad in my leadership roundtables, where we're talking about our member engagement and our likelihood to retain all members going into this next fiscal year and our next dues cycle, right? So you're going to be able to set those weighted scores on organizations and on individuals and decide how you want to measure them, and then be able to see your trends and know what's going on in the business of being an association, so that you can make accurate budgeting forecasts, staffing forecasts, event planning forecasts, and so on. And then also, again, back to that warm, gooey center, you know that you're helping more people. I have a little dashboard that I track for every state that we've got a school board or a superintendent association in. I measure how many students are in that school, in that state. How many students are we facilitating the education of through our product? Just as an example, right? You could think about things that way. What's the impact that we're having? That impact can be measured to some degree through your engagement with your members, because the work you're doing is to enable them. So that is a quick look at engagement scoring. Any thoughts, questions on that? Anybody want to throw anything in the chat? Don't let me monologue, guys. I'll start doing Shakespeare. You don't want Shakespeare. Don't challenge me to Shakespeare. I'll do it. All right. Next thing, member communities. Okay, so California right now is undergoing a terrible situation with their wildfires. Real recently here, Georgia, parts of Tennessee, the Carolinas had a nasty bit of hurricane fallout. Florida as well, of course. Everybody remembers Katrina and its devastation. I'm from Oklahoma. And so, the annual cycle of tornadoes coming down and wreaking havoc is all too familiar to me. And so when I think about these things and I think about the work that you all do, there's, especially in for those of you out there that are in the local government world. So I'm thinking of my county municipal cities and towns associations, especially, but of course, this sort of concept is going to be applicable everywhere. Right now, there's someone who's got a fire team or a fire plane, one of those water dropping planes, out in California, who flew that plane down from Seattle or from Sacramento or from San Francisco down to the LA area to help. So that plane is being dispatched into this area for assistance because someone asked for it. someone in LA said, it's probably Graham, the executive director of the LA counties out there, probably said, yo, I need help. Send me a plane. And so some fine, gentle soul north of them said, okay, here you go. Here's a plane. What we want to do is facilitate conversations between you and your members, as well as between your members themselves, so that when the mayor of Los Angeles needs help, he can ask for it. And other mayors around the state can say, okay, here I come. When the county commissioner needs help, they can ask for it. And others can say, here you go. Or when school boards are wrestling with how to deal with this curriculum problem, this book situation, or what have you, they can ask for help from others within the confines of a password controlled community. We're not doing this on Facebook. We're not doing this in email. So what we've come up with is this concept of member hubs. We're also playing with the term of member communities. Love to hear your thoughts on this. But basically think of hubs as little contextual areas of conversation, not unlike Facebook groups if you use them, right? So if you're a cyclist and you're part of a cycling Facebook group, or a car enthusiast and you're a part of a car enthusiast Facebook group, similar concept here, right? You as moderators will be able to create little groups and have within those groups conversations. So I'm going to add a new group here. And again, this is just an interactive prototype. I'm going to have a group here called the District School Associations Department 2024. I'm going to give it its specific link, and I'm going to link this to an upcoming event. But I might also be linking it to a bill. Maybe this is a conversation around an important piece of legislation, or a training program that we have, a certification, or an upcoming workshop, or all of the people in our current mayor's group, or what have you. Or maybe it's just an all members sort of thing, right? What's the context of this thing? And then who's its moderator? So Jan here is the moderator, or Jan, I'm sorry, is the moderator, who will be able to hide or delete or whatever. If someone posts something offensive or irrelevant out into this hub, they can do that stuff. So once I've got a hub, I can go in and I can create a post in that hub, just like in Facebook, right? And I'm going to give that post a title. I'm going to associate it with, of the things that you've linked to the hub, I'm going to say, well, this is specifically to this board development event. And I'm going to pop in some commentary, maybe some photography, and I'm going to hit post, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I might give it tags, and then I'm going to hit post eventually. And now I can have other folks reply. So now here, for whatever reason, I've got a jumpsuit hanging in a bathroom. That's the weirdest picture I've ever seen. But you get the idea. This might be a picture of a wildfire, or this might be a picture of a firefighting airplane that's available to you, county commissioner in LA, mayor in LA, that is available to you. Do you want me to send my guys down? I can have them flying tomorrow, right? And the LA mayor saying, absolutely, send them post haste, right? So you can have these conversations just like a Facebook group, again, within the confines of Engagifii, without emails, without text messages. Not saying those will ever go away. You're going to have emails, you're going to have texts, you're going to have all that stuff. But here's an area where, number one, you can facilitate important conversations, disseminate important information, and on top of all of that, allow your members to interact with one another and support each other's mission. Instead of calling you every time, they can also ask each other. And then all of that is measurable as engagement. People that are using Member Hub a lot are more engaged than those that are not, are facilitating more than those that are not. So you can create these, like I said, around events, around maybe a piece of legislation. We've got our public dashboards, we've got our legislative reports that so many of you use, and they're great. But maybe you want to have a really robust conversation with your membership or with a steering committee or what have you around a bill. And so I'm going to create a hub around this Georgia homelessness bill and have a robust conversation with my membership about it. So that's Member Hub. Interesting concept. I think folks are going to really love it. And again, the key thing here is that it's all living directly within Engagifii. All right. Who in the room does, you know what? I know a bunch of folks do legislation because that won the poll earlier. Legislation. Anyone from Arizona in the house, or New Mexico, or let me think. Gosh, I think Tennessee comes to mind. There's around 20 states for whom it looks like this. And this is New Mexico. This is an example from New Mexico. There are around 20 states for whom Engagify, the state doesn't make available to us in the public sources that we consume a bill summary. They oftentimes just give us the bill name and then very helpfully the bill name again. And so with that being the case, we have been struggling for some time to figure out a good approach to closing this gap so that you can make quicker decisions when you're triaging new bills that were introduced yesterday, as to which bills are important and which ones aren't. A lot of times that summary is a good indicator that of one you can skip over or one that you really need to dig into. But if you're in New Mexico or if you're in Arizona or several other states, you don't have a summary within Engagify that you can really count on. So with all that said, AI over the last couple of years has obviously made a ton of massive strides. I'm sure that many, if not all, of you are experimenting in your organizations with how you can use AI, if not already completely instituted it. Hey, what's up, Courtney, Arizona? I'm speaking to you. In fact, you'll notice how this is called AZ Bill Summary. The idea came from an Arizona client. But we've decided to take AI and utilize its power to instantly evaluate and summarize things here. Now, we didn't introduce it for this coming session. We kind of wanted to, but we didn't, because as AI has sort of come into some level of maturity, one of the realities that's come out of that is that sometimes it's simply wrong. There's this concept called hallucination, where AI will simply make stuff up that isn't true. And so with that in mind, we are taking some extra pains, given the importance of the legislative work you do, to ensure that the summaries that I'm about to show you examples of, that the summaries are not only sort of correct, but also not politically biased. There's that old saying that history is written by the victor. Well, sometimes the bill summaries are written by the sponsor, and so we can't necessarily trust that the summary that is the right place to go. So even in some states where you have a summary, maybe you don't trust it. I've heard a couple of states talk about politically biased summaries. So, oh, there's a question back there. Hey, Beth, were you asking about people adding attachments or just photos back in the member hub section? Sorry, I missed your question a moment ago. Okay, so yeah, they can do photos, they can attach documents as well. So sorry, I missed your deal there. They're in the text editor. It's the same text editor that you're using right now with legislative. I'm not sure if I've got a good picture of that mid composition. I guess I don't, but it's the same composer that you use elsewhere in Engagify that allows you to attach stuff. So in fact, I should be able to show you this. If I were writing a bill summary here, I'm sorry, a bill analysis here, I can attach files. Same thing. You'll have the same exact capability within the hub. Sorry, I missed your question. So back on the bill summaries here. So in a situation like this here in Arizona, where I don't have an analysis, what we're going to present and provide for you is sort of a three-tiered deal. Number one, if there is a legislature summary, because many of you do have summaries. Georgia does a great job of this. Maryland does a great job of this. If you do have a summary, then awesome. We're going to present to you that summary and you can choose to use it. But we're also going to provide our own AI generated summary. So that's going to look at the summary and say, or I'm sorry, it's going to look at the bill in its entirety and write its own summary of the bill. So this is what solves the Arizona and New Mexico problem, right? Is that where no summary exists, which would be here, you'll have this one to always be able to count on. Now, either of these might just be a launching point, or either of these might not be summarized in such a way that's meaningful to you, your staff, and your membership. So you might choose to write your own summary instead. And then in any future publications, your newsletter, your what we call legislative report, your weekly Friday afternoon, here's what we're doing on the Hill newsletter, you're going to be able to choose which one of these you want to use. So notice I've got a select button next to each of these. So I can click select here, and this version of the summary, if I'm merging summaries into a report, that's the one that will be used. So the way it'll work is I can look at prior summaries. So one of the cool things that we do in Engagify is, of course, we track prior versions of a bill and allow you to compare them with one another. So the introduced version of the bill versus the passed version of the bill or the vetoed version of the bill may be very different. And that means the summary may be very different. And a lot of states don't keep the summary up to date as the bill evolves. The summary is static as of the time of introduction. So whenever the bill is engrossed or introduced or chaptered or what have you, we're going to provide to you a new AI summary that you can choose to use or not use going forward, right? As well as the historical access to all the prior summaries too. Cool. Of course, in a report, I'm sorry, let me back up 1 second. Notice how I can copy from an existing summary here. If you want to use our AI summary or the state provided summary as a springboard to create your own summary, your own custom summary, you can do that. You'll just hit copy and that will create a new summary with all those words that you can then doctor and do whatever you want to. And of course, have different summaries tagged to different versions of the bill so that all of your summaries are available to you. Again, with the end goal being communication. When it's time to write the legislative report, if I'm merging in a summary, which one's being merged. And it's whichever one you select, whichever one you choose is the active summary at this time is the one that we will include in that bill communications. Reactions, especially from the Arizona, New Mexico, and I think Tennessee. Like I said, there's around 20 states, I think, that suffer from this "we don't get bill summaries" problem that we are working on this year for the 26th session. Reactions, thoughts, questions to that at all, everybody? And then if not, I've got a couple more polls I want to ask. Looking at the chat. Courtney, this will be helpful and time saving. That's good to hear. I hope so, right? We've spoken to a couple folks in your state. Again, Arizona is where the idea and the request originally came from, and then we found that it was really applicable everywhere else. I was speaking in front of a room of 50 association execs, all 50 across the country, a couple months ago, and when we talked about this, I just sort of did a, hey, would this be interesting to who all in this room? And I'm telling you, 48 hands went up. It was nuts. The other two were just eating food still. But I mean, everyone seemed really, really excited about it, which surprised us. We thought that this would be a little bit of a kind of a very focused feature where it would only be heavily utilized in a couple of states where the problem is most pronounced. So pretty excited.